This is being young. The days of endless summers.
Vulnerability's hard.
We had a permit. We had a plan. We went.
I think that about sums it up.
Core experiences that I know fundamentally shifted who I am as a person.
And I was like, are you okay?
I wasn't.
In hindsight, I would do things completely differently.
Is it yither?
Is it yonder? Welcome to Yither and Yonder. So last time on Yither and Yonder, there's a part of me that has been chasing those feelings for nearly 10 years.
I think about it now and I'm like, I did crazy shit.
Which in hindsight, why the hell did I do that? I was miserable. It was not good for my mental health.
Being alone with my thoughts in a truly alone situation, I think made me realize how alone I was in my life surrounded by people.
When I was in it, I'm like, oh, she was such a privileged little girl. She didn't even realize how in danger she was.
I would never have chosen to be in some of the situations that we landed in, but we got out of them.
And it just gave me so much space to think about everything and nothing.
We're reminiscing, but with purpose.
Yes.
Do we need to start with how this even happened?
You mean like day zero or?
How do we get to day zero?
Yeah, I guess we can start there.
There's a couple of bits and pieces that I think I want to give to do the John Muir Trail, which starts in the Yosemite Valley and goes to the top of Mount Whitney.
Yes.
Not down from Mount Whitney.
No.
That's not the trail. You have to do it, but it's not the trail.
Yes, because if you don't do it, then you're just at the top of Mount Whitney.
Correct.
Yes.
So we had to, in planning this, kind of play calendar bingo for when we could go, because we were not in classes or teaching.
Correct.
And when we would feasibly want to go, given it was at the time, one of the biggest snowpacks that California had had in a very long time. We knew that you had to apply for your permit because you have to have a permit to do this trail.
Yeah.
You had to apply for your permit 6 months out. We had to figure out when a window existed because it was at the time a lottery system. And the lottery system worked such that you filled out the form and faxed it to the permit office. We wanted to start at Happy Isles, which is mile 0 in the Yosemite Valley. And to do that, we filled it out and sent it to I think it was actually the valley is where they received it. And then we were put into a lottery for about a 3-week window where we knew we were going to try to do the whole hike in 24 days.
Yes.
So there are 6 major mountain passes ranging from 11,000 feet to 13,000 feet, including the highest point on the Pacific Crest Trail, Forester Pass, which we did not do. We'll get there. With other significant passes being Donahue, which we did not do.
We'll get there.
Muir, Mather, Pinchot, which we almost died on.
We'll get there.
And Glen, where M vehemently demanded applesauce with the little foil top. We'll get there. Yeah, so there's Donahue, Silver, Muir, Mather, Pinchot, Glen, Forester. And there are not true passes, but there were other, I don't want to call them mountains.
Like Bear.
Yes, it's like
felt
it's an
like a
informal
mountain.
pass because you're not actually going between. Well, Glen Pass felt like you got to the top of the fucking peak because I felt like I could just reach up and touch it by the time we were actually going over.
You know, you said 6 and my heart dropped because it felt like we were doing a pass a day. And I was like, there were only 6?
Technically, there are only 6 passes, but there are more I'll call them peaks of the trail,
Yeah.
where the trail goes up in elevation, you get to a high point, and you come back down. They're not all true passes where there is a path that helps you navigate from one side of the mountain to the other, but there are big chunks of mountain that you have to hike kind of up and around, or in some cases it feels like you're hiking over them. Oh, there was also, did I say Selden? I remember Selden Pass. I remember that.
Which we did do.
We did, and we will get there. But just some like contextualizing, I think, to set people up to understand what we were committing to doing and how we had to prep
Yes.
to even get to the place where we had a permit is, I think, would be helpful. The John Muir Trail Wilderness Conservancy actually says there are 10 High Sierra passes, which feels more accurate. I think the number 11 is because I'm including Whitney.
My body remembers Bear Mountain feeling like a pass. It was also hot and humid that day. We'll get there.
Oh.
But I don't think it's counted in a lot of these things.
So Happy Isles is the Yosemite Valley, and the first 3 days takes you to Tuolumne Meadows, which if you are coming in from the east side of the Sierra on 395, you take Tioga Pass, which is typically what we had done. Every time I had taken you to Yosemite at that point, we had come from the east side up Tioga Pass, and it spits you out, don't quote me here, at something like 12,000 feet when you enter the park. And then I think Tuolumne Meadows is probably between 10 and 11,000 feet. So you're going from 4,000 feet, Happy Isles, to like 10, 11, just to get out of the valley.
Yeah.
And that is the first 3 days. And then Donahue Pass exits Yosemite National Park, takes you to Red's Meadow, which is a frequent resupply for folks. That is also in the Mammoth Lakes area to give some context to people. And then there's Silver Pass, Selden Pass, Evolution Valley, which
is world famous for its beauty.
All we heard was it was the most beautiful place on the trail. And boy, howdy, do we have opinions.
We'll get there.
Muir Pass, which is a story in itself. It is one of the longest passes. Most people are on it for about 3 days. Usually a piece of day one, a whole day, and then a piece of day 3.
It was one of my favorites, though.
That's a hot take.
Not for the reason you're saying. Okay, sorry. We're saying we'll get there a lot, but like, we'll get there.
Mather Pass, then Pinchot Pass, Glen Pass, which is where we chose to exit the trail, and then we would have had Forester and Mount Whitney to be able to complete the trail. And as we said, Mount Whitney, it is, as a now Coloradan, I love to acknowledge, it is the tallest 14er in the continental United States at 14,505 feet. So suck that, Colorado, with your 54 14ers. California wins. There are so many 14ers in the Rockies, and the Sierra's like, yeah, but I'm taller. I just love it. So that's kind of an overview of the trail. It gives you an idea. Most of the passes are 11,000 to 13,000 feet, Forester being the tallest pass before Mount Whitney. There are some fun bits and pieces about each of these passes that I'm sure we'll talk about, given that we hiked them. Muir Pass has the Muir Hut. The Mather Pass is known for the Golden Staircase, which I actually have a playlist for the day that I did the Golden Staircase because are we cussing on this podcast?
I mean, I think cussing is word glitter. So
Holy fuck, was that a lot of steps?
Yeah.
And I've done the Manitou Incline.
Yeah.
That shit was easy compared to the Golden Staircase.
Yeah.
I didn't have a 58-pound pack on when I was doing the Manitou Incline, though. We've got some fun pictures and bits and pieces from each one of these, but, key features of the John Muir Trail are a lot of these big passes. It truly is up and down every day.
Yes.
And it is filled with stunning, high elevation, glacially carved alpine lakes.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you hike it the way that we did, which is from Yosemite to Whitney, each pass gets progressively taller and taller and taller. It just gets more and more alpine until you're eventually above the tree line,
which is not fun. Personal opinion, not fun.
Yeah. When you hear above the tree line, read
cold,
Windy, rocky.
a sleeping pad doesn't really help at that point.
Yeah. It's its own kind of beauty, I guess.
So we did probably about a year of research going into this, and we really were committed to doing it north to south for the reason that just mentioned, in that you start at 4,000 feet and you work your way up to taller and taller passes before you do Mount Whitney.
Yes.
Versus us coming from Oregon at 600 feet above sea level and trying to go up 14,500 feet.
The Eugene train station's at 400 feet and some change.
We really wanted to start at Happy Isles because we thought it would help us acclimatize to the elevation. And I don't think we fully considered what the first 3 days would mean going from Happy Isles, literally just climbing out of all of that. We'll talk more about it as we get to those days. But we had a plan to start at Happy Isles. We submitted our lottery ticket for a 3-week window. And those 3 weeks were for start dates.
Yes.
So we actually had about a 5-week window, because if we had gotten it on the first day we submitted, it would have been 3 weeks from that day. If we got it from the last day we submitted, it would have been 3 weeks from that day, like a 5 or 6 week window. And we were shooting for ideally August.
Yes.
I think the second week of August was the beginning of our availability to about the end of August. And we knew the end of August would be cutting it close. Given September, sometimes we get those storms rolling through. Kind of from the west, we just get some kind of icky weather.
Yeah.
Occasionally, it was an El Nino year. We knew that because of the snow.
Yes.
So we had an idea of what weather might look like in that fall, but we submitted it, and I spent 2.5 weeks panicking because we never got anything.
Yeah.
Which meant the lottery did not pick us. And I knew we needed a game plan for how to do it if we didn't get the lottery ticket. We didn't win the lottery. We had a few other options. We could have done entry points at different, less prestigious passes. I say prestigious because the through hiker mentality of hike every footstep on the trail.
Terminus to terminus.
Correct. We were trying to do that as authentically as possible, and we recognized that it may not be feasible. And so there was a few other places that are good starting points that are not on the John Muir Trail, but meet the John Muir Trail. So you're hiking, I think it's like between 6 and 40 miles from other entry points to meet the trail. And those can be a little bit easier to get. The National Park Service, their permitting system, because it is the beginning, it's a very hard permit to get. And if you want to come in on like Forest Service land from one of those entry points, that tends to be a little bit easier to get those permits. And we thought that that might be an option. And I vividly remember I was the graduate employee for a 300 level women and gender in anthropology class. It was like a gender course that was being taught primarily about women and femininity. And I was like, no.
You.
I was like, no. So I had found a really great documentary. This, mind you, was in like 2017 when the phrase toxic masculinity was fresh. We were really starting to, like, academically, it was starting to come into the language. And it was a frame that we hadn't really played with in that course. And so I asked the professor if I could integrate that into one of my discussion sections, and she seemed really open to it. So I had seen the documentary 2 or 3 times because I don't feel comfortable sharing that kind of stuff if I'm not comfortable with all of the content.
Yeah.
And it was long. So it was like 2 classes that we had to watch it. It was the 3rd go round. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to run to the office. I have a couple of things to print. And I walked down the hall and I logged into one of the computers because that was the easiest way to print. And I had been teaching for 3 hours. I hadn't looked at my email. And I had an email from Yosemite National Park with our permit.
Yep.
And I lost my mind. We got Happy Isles because you also have to rank your entry point. And so we had put Happy Isles as our top one, but we weren't guaranteed that. We had put this long window of start dates. We weren't guaranteed that. And I don't know why we did this, but we checked the box for half dome permits because you could add it as a little add-on. And we got our Happy Isles permit for the end of August.
Yep.
Through the beginning of September to complete the trail over 24 days with an additional permit for Half Dome.
I think Half Dome was my fault.
I feel like I probably was like, do you want to do Half Dome? And you were like, sure, why not?
Yeah. But I feel like I had, because at the time I was subscribed to like a bunch of outdoor magazines, you know, like Outside and Backpacker Magazine and, you know, that sort of content. I knew about the Half Dome summiting hike, and I'm a hiker. I am not a mountaineer person. Shout out to mountaineers, like they are badass people. It's just not a skill set that I have. And I was like, wait a minute, I can stand on the top of Half Dome? Like, that sounds dope.
I knew exactly what Half Dome was, and I was just too much of a coward to be like, I'm scared.
So when the opportunity arose to like actually do it, in theory, right? Like, this is not us actually doing it, but like in theory, sitting in your apartment, filling out this permit, I was like, yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
If we get it, we get it. If we don't, we don't.
Yes. Like, let's give ourselves the opportunity.
And we'll get there.
Indeed. Indeed.
We'll get there. I remember printing that permit email so fast.
Yes.
And it wasn't even the permit, right? It was like just a confirmation that a permit existed at the wilderness stations in Yosemite to be picked up prior to our hike.
I think you sent me a picture of the email, and I was so excited, but it was for like the late August window, and I started counting, and I realized that my classes, because we were at different universities at the time, my classes were going to start while we were on the trail. And I was like, oh crap. So I immediately started working behind the scenes to be like, how can I make this happen? And I walked into the professor's office, whose class I was potentially going to miss the first couple of weeks of. And I was like, I have this opportunity and I am going to do it. I would like to not have to take a term off because that would delay my graduation. How can we make this work? Can we make this work? In hindsight, that took such bravery to walk into a professor's office and be like, I'm doing this. And I would prefer not to take a semester off. And shout out to Dr. Jean James. If you are listening to this, you're fantastic. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Because he was like, yeah, that sounds like a great opportunity. And if you'll give a presentation on the multicultural aspects of the trail, because the class that I was going to miss the first couple of weeks of was multiculturalism in the context of counseling, then I will let you miss the first couple of weeks of this class.
Yeah, I think that's an important point too. I like co-opted you into my research. I had been studying hiking. I did my master's thesis for my master's in anthropology on a tree in LA that people hike to. There's actually a receptacle, I'll call it. Sometimes it's a toolbox, sometimes it's a Ziploc baggie, sometimes it's a giant different box, suitcases. I've seen so many things up there where people write notes. Sometimes to people they don't give them to, sometimes to the tree, sometimes to the city, sometimes to other hikers. Like, it's just a variety of people that are the intended audience. But people pick up notes and they respond to each other. And it was this really cool kind of niche hiking thing. Like, yes, we have cairns. Yes, there's trail logs where people sign things. Yes, people carve their names in trees. You know, finishers will take pictures with a sign at the top of Katahdin, or right. There's things that people do, but I had never seen anything like that previously. And I don't think since I have like published on the work that anyone has ever directly told me they have found something similar.
Yeah.
Some people have mentioned like geocaching as similar. It's not quite the same because a lot of people, this tree is on the mountain that the Hollywood sign is on, and it is the singular tree on this hill. So people, it's kind of an icon. People see it and they're like, ah, the tree. It's called the Wisdom Tree. And I was really invested in understanding how community could be formed completely separate from our visible identities, and the way that people could connect Shocking, I know, based on the first episode. How people could connect through their own stories and experiences. And there is something really human about talking about your highest highs. People that were like, I got the role, like I got the part, I came to LA for the dream and I got it. Or their lowest lows, like I had to go to his house today to pick up my kids from his house. They are my kids. What am I, and
The peaks and the valleys.
And I ended up calling it tangible communitas because there is a word in anthropology and in folklore. If you've ever been to a concert or a football game, the moment when everyone's singing the song together or cheering because the team they care about, and you feel that sense of like, my people, these are my people. That's communitas. And this box gave people that without anyone having to see each other, look each other in the eyes, be vulnerable to another, like be witness to someone's vulnerability or to like have to be vulnerable to somebody, but they still were doing it.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to build on understanding how hiking and being outdoors could create space where there is a unified experience of a person who has been to that place.
Vulnerability's hard.
When I got to Oregon, I wanted to continue studying hiking, and I really thought a lot about long distance hiking. I had seen the documentary Mile and a Half, which if you haven't, I highly recommend it. In particular, if you want to see the places we're talking about, because the folks that made that documentary, bless them, because we had heavy packs with just our crap. They carried photography equipment, they carried cameras, they carried audio equipment with the intention of recording what the John Muir Trail looks, feels, and like what the sense is of being on that trail for future generations, because they feared that it would no longer be as it is now in the future.
Yeah.
And it's a group of friends that like goof off and have a great time. And like, I really wanted to understand more about that. What does that look like? And so the John Muir Trail was both personally something that I cared about because it is in the mountains that I have been going to since I was a very small child and have a lot of connection to. And it's a shorter long distance trail that was on the side of the country I would still be on in an area that I already knew fairly well, at least the front country of that area. It felt like a good option. And so that's where we landed on the John Muir Trail. That's how we got permits. And at that point, I had done a bunch of interviews with folks. My master's thesis in folklore was on women negotiating their identity in outdoor spaces because it is such a masculine space. So I had done some research. We had done quite a few road trips to different national parks where we had chatted with people and kind of done some like visual counting of who is there and some assumptions on identity. But we had done a lot of adventuring that I had collected a lot of data, and this was kind of like the capstone to it. Like, this is an anthropology, this is participant observation. I am participating and I am observing. And this was, to me, what felt like the biggest chunk of my data that qualified me to write the dissertation I intended to write. And I literally was just like, come with me.
Okay.
And, you ended up doing a little bit of research too, because you had your class and you had ideas about what you wanted to explore in terms of mental health and being outside. And so we both had some research goals and we said, fuck it, let's do it. We had our permit and we had a plan. We kind of had an outline of what we thought we could accomplish every day. Do you want to talk about packing and like what we brought with us?
I mean, I overpacked. That's the gist of it, I think.
My pack was something like 78 pounds.
Oh no.
I know. Part of it was that I was trying to be a very good and very diligent researcher.
Yes.
And I had my Zoom recorder to record all of our conversations with folks. Could I have used my cell phone? Yes. Did I use my cell phone? No. Did I use the Zoom recorder? Also no. Did I use the 5 pounds of batteries that I knew I would need? No. We had, do you remember we were in Phoenix because we were on our second road trip of that summer?
Yes.
Where we were going to the Grand Canyon.
Yeah.
and trying to see her brother. And we had landed in Phoenix and we were like T-minus a couple of weeks to the JMT. And someone on Ladies of the JMT said the best thing I brought was my sun parasol, because she had rigged it so it sat in like a little pocket on her strap and it blocked the sun. She was like, it was perfect. We were like, that's brilliant. We bought umbrellas. We went to like a Dick's Sporting Goods.
Yeah.
And the only thing we could find were these like chair umbrellas that you like clamp onto like a chair for like a soccer game. And we were like, yeah, that'll work. Totally. Not only did they not work, but they were heavy as all hell. And we were like, no, it's not that bad. It's not that bad. Not considering the 60 pounds of other gear we were bringing.
We were also, okay, there's a class thing here, right? Like,
100%.
lens that needs to be considered, which is we were graduate students. We had no money. So at the time, ultralight backpacking was really, really taking off. And ultralight backpacking gear at the time was very expensive. And it's still very expensive. But at the time, because it was so new, it was like ultra very expensive.
Yes.
We had no money. I mean, I had no money. I was very newly married. I was a graduate student on her second master's degree to like try to be able to get a job to pay my bills. I was not working in preparation of going on this trail. Like I was doing like odd jobs and stuff. And so the gear that I could afford weighed a ton because it was not cheap gear. And there's a correlation between like what something costs and what it weighs.
It's no different than any other kind of travel.
Yes.
If you have a lot of money, it's very comfortable.
Yeah.
You fly first class. You have a car waiting for you to pick you up.
Mm-hmm.
You probably checked your bags so you weren't dragging them through the airport. You go to a resort. You have room service. All of those amenities are because you have the money to afford them.
Yeah.
Backpacking is no different.
Yeah.
Are you carrying? We both had, this is still a resentment I have, but I have no one to direct it to. An unnamed employee at REI
Yes.
gave me the wrong pack size. They
Me too.
measured my back. I have apparently, I was told, and my massage therapist actually validated this. I have a long spine, but I have very high hips. My hips are very tall. So despite being 5'8", I wear an extra small backpack because of where my hips are. I think I had a medium backpack. And that means when you're backpacking, you want all of the weight on your hips, so it is not pulling down on your shoulders. Well, given that my hips were much higher than the waist belt could ever be, I either had them on my hips and the backpack had like 3 inches that just pulled back because there was a giant gap at the top of my shoulders, or it was on my shoulders and the strap was so low that all the weight fell on my shoulders instead of my hips.
Yeah.
And no matter how much adjusting either of us did to fix this exact problem,
Yes.
we never fixed it.
Correct. I also had the wrong size backpack. So we had Gregory backpacks, and I actually really liked the backpack itself because it had like really nice lumbar support. And when I went back and repurchased a backpack with the correct size backplate, I repurchased this exact backpack just with the correct size backplate. I also wear an extra small backplate, but I was sized at a small, and you wouldn't think that the difference between an extra small and a small on the backplate makes a difference, but by the time we got off the trail, my back was screaming. And that was before, I struggled with chronic pain,
Right.
like all the time.
So not only did we have too much crap that we shouldn't have brought to begin with, but we had backpacks that were ill-fitting. We both had inflatable
Mattress
sleep pads,
Yeah.
and they were heavy as all hell, but it was like $45 at a REI garage sale, which was much cheaper than the $100 foam pad that was not at the garage sale. And it's like, we bought a lot of our stuff at REI garage sales or clearance events.
Yeah.
And you have to realize that they're probably there for a reason. They did the job, not judging anyone who uses them, but it did, in fact, negatively impact the experience because we started out with packs that were too heavy. And we brought a bunch of stuff that I think now I know we didn't need.
Yeah.
We did edit.
We did.
Hike. We did get a very endearing and concerned friend that we met who was very upset at how we packed and encouraged us to strongly reconsider. And we'll get there.
Yeah. And then the other thing, so I was newly married. Like I just mentioned this a few minutes ago, but it's relevant to the packing conversation. I got married in June and we were on the trail late August. And my spouse was very worried about us. Like, was excited for us, but was worried about us. And was in the military for a long time. And the way he expressed his excitement and concern at the same time was he packed our first aid kit. He packed a hell of a first aid kit. Anything that we could have possibly needed from...
This man packed like we were going on Naked and Afraid.
It's true. Different types of wipes and bandages and splints to sterilized, individually wrapped sutures and...
I don't know how to use those. I would never use that.
But thank goodness we didn't need them, right? Or in a situation where we had to figure it out.
Thank you, Shane.
Yes. Thank you, Shane. And, you know, his big point was like, I'm not going to be able to get to you. Because he does know how to use all those things. And he's like, I'm not going to be able to get to you if something happens. And you two are incredibly smart. And you will be able to figure it out. There was also a book on how to use all these things in the first aid kit.
Of course there was.
So I need you to have these things. Because I need you to live. And it was very sweet. And it was just such an expression of love. But it also weighed several pounds.
And I will say, we did take a wilderness survival class.
We did.
At UO, because they do have a like wilderness education program.
Yeah.
And so we did learn some of the basics, which came in handy.
Correct.
We'll get there. This is a drinking game. Every time we say we'll get there, you can take a shot. It definitely was an adventure exploring what we needed and what we thought we needed.
Yes. In hindsight, I would do things completely differently.
And by the time we were off the trail, at the midway point when I had resupplied our food for the rest of the hike, my pack was like 56 pounds with water, food, and stuff. So we offloaded
a lot
of stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that helped. But going into it, we had done a lot of research. We had scoured the internet for good hot tips. Maybe I'm going to go down a rabbit hole. There's an episode, I believe, of Richard Scarry's Busy Town from my childhood, in which one of the parents asks one of the little animal children to go to the store, and they have a list. And on the list is things like butter and milk and bread. And the kid goes. They're like, butter. Peanut butter is better than regular butter. I'll get peanut butter. And milk. Well, ice cream tastes better than milk, and they're basically the same thing. And they eventually get home, and their mother is like, I understand what you're saying, but you have to understand that each one of these things is an ingredient, and I can't use peanut butter when I'm trying to make cookies as a substitute because it doesn't work, right? Like, I can't make dinner if I need milk with ice cream. That won't taste good. And it's like a very basic lesson for very young children.
Yeah.
That like you're making false equivalencies. These things are different, and you can't always just pick the thing that tastes the best because it doesn't always give you what you want when you're doing the thing.
Yeah.
I think we did that with our gear. We're like, oh yeah, parasol sounds great. Sun umbrella that clips to my chair, that'll clip to my backpack. Sounds great.
Yes.
So in some ways, I think we in our best efforts,
Mhm.
took some advice and then made choices. And there were consequences for those choices that were unintended.
Yes, agreed. Agreed.
We had a permit.
Yeah.
We had a plan.
Yeah.
We went.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening. We appreciate your support in this retelling of our chaotic adventure. We love to hear from y'all, so reach out on social media at yitheryonderpod or send us an email at yitheryonderpod@gmail.com. Find us on your favorite listening platform, and please rate, review, and subscribe because it really does help. Don't forget to check the show notes for resources and helpful links. And if you'd like more content, subscribe on your favorite membership platform. Info's available on our website, yitheryonderpod.com. We've got weekly blogs from each of us, some planning resources from our trip, with tips on what we do differently, and some other fun bonus content. We truly appreciate you joining us on this great adventure. Until next time.